My name is Margaret Knight. I'm 33 years old, and I work in operations for a mid-sized logistics company in Chicago. My days are structured in a way that most people would probably find repetitive. Early calls with warehouses, putting out small fires before they turn into bigger ones, making sure timelines hold even when everything around them tries to fall apart. I'm not flashy. I don't chase chaos. I like things that make sense. I like a home life that feels steady, something I can come back to without wondering what version of it I'll walk into. Ethan Cole is 30. He works in marketing, the kind of job that thrives on energy, conversation, constant movement. We've been together a little over 2 years, and for the past 10 months he's been living with me. When we first moved in together, everything felt balanced. The lease is in my name, so I cover the rent. He takes care of groceries and a couple of bills, and we split anything bigger. It wasn't perfect, but it worked, or at least it looked like it worked from the outside. The thing about Ethan is that he has a way of shifting conversations so subtly you don't realize it's happening until you're already on the defensive. If I forgot something small, like switching the laundry, he'd laugh it off, but not kindly. If I asked what time he'd be home, suddenly I was being controlling. If I mentioned he'd been on his phone all through dinner, I was reading too much into things. I learned over time that bringing up small concerns often meant walking away, feeling like I had done something wrong. But I've never been the jealous type. I have male colleagues I talk to regularly. He has female coworkers. That was never the issue. What started to bother me wasn't a single moment. It was a pattern. Ethan began using one phrase constantly: client meeting. It became his default answer to everything. A clean explanation that shut down questions before they could fully form. At first, it made sense. His job is built around networking, client dinners, last-minute opportunities. But then it started happening more often. Weeknights, short notice, always dressed just slightly sharper than usual, like there was intention behind it, not just routine. He'd leave around 7 or 8, come back late, and his mood would swing in a way that didn't quite match what he claimed had happened. If I asked how it went, I'd get the same response every time. Boring, just work. And then he'd disappear into the bathroom, turning on the shower before the conversation could go any further. At some point, I realized something simple. The details never matched. One night it was downtown, another river north, then suddenly a suburb. No names, no specifics, no frustration about clients, which, from what I knew about his job, was usually the first thing people complained about. And the strangest part wasn't the inconsistency. It was the way he reacted when I noticed it. Not defensive in the way someone feels accused. Defensive in the way someone feels entitled. Like I was stepping into a space I wasn't supposed to question. Last Thursday was when everything shifted from something I couldn't explain into something I couldn't ignore. He mentioned the client dinner casually, almost like he was reminding himself instead of informing me. West Loop tonight, he said, scrolling through his phone. I asked which client. Not because I was suspicious, because that's what I always did. It was normal. He didn't look up when he answered. New tech startup, big opportunity. No name, no details, just important. He left around 7. And I remember noticing how put together he looked. Not over the top, just deliberate. New shoes I hadn't seen before. His hair styled a little more carefully. His cologne slightly stronger than usual. If I didn't know better, I would have said he looked like he was going on a date. At 9:30, I sent a simple text. Will you be home before midnight? I need the car in the morning. He replied 15 minutes later. Things are going great. Might move to another bar to keep talking numbers. That was the moment something in me went quiet. Because I've worked around enough sales teams to understand how those nights actually go. They don't move to another bar at 10 p.m. to keep discussing contracts. They finish, they expense it, they go home. At 10:45, I did something I almost never do. I checked his location. We shared it for safety. It wasn't something I monitored. But that night, I looked. He wasn't in West Loop. He was about 20 minutes north, in a quieter area, small restaurants, residential streets, nothing that looked like a business district. I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just memorized the address. When he got home after midnight, he smelled different. Not strong, not obvious. Just enough to register. A scent that wasn't mine. He walked past me like everything was normal and went straight to the bathroom, turning on the shower before I could say anything. I sat there, listening to the water run, and for the first time, I wasn't trying to figure out what was happening. I think deep down I already knew. When he came out, I asked him how the big tech startup was going. He didn't even hesitate. He rolled his eyes. You wouldn't get it. It's marketing. And that was it. No explanation, no effort, just dismissal. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. I stopped feeling confused, and I started paying attention. The next morning, I didn't wake Ethan up. I could have. I could have shaken him gently, asked direct questions, forced clarity before the day even started. But I didn't trust myself to do that without emotion creeping in, and I needed to be precise. So instead, I laced up my running shoes and left the apartment before the sun had fully settled into the skyline. Chicago in the early morning has a kind of honesty to it, quiet, stripped down, like nothing is pretending to be more than it is. I ran longer than usual, not because I needed the exercise, but because I needed space to think without reacting. By the time I came back, my breathing had steadied. My thoughts had too. Ethan was in the kitchen, making coffee like nothing had shifted overnight. Like the previous evening had been exactly what he said it was. Predictable. That word would come back later. His laptop was still on the kitchen table, and I noticed something I had ignored before. The screen was dark, but notifications were visible along the top edge, calendar alerts, stacked in a way that made them impossible not to read if you were standing where I was. There was no client dinner, no tech startup, no West Loop. There was only a recurring entry. Attention. At first, I thought it might be internal shorthand. Marketing teams use vague labels all the time. Lead nurturing, follow-ups, retention strategies. But this wasn't a one-time entry. It was repeating. Every Thursday, 7 to 11 p.m. No location, no client name, just one word. Attention. I didn't say anything immediately. I poured myself a glass of water, took a slow sip, and let the silence stretch just long enough to feel intentional. Then I asked casually, "Hey, I saw a calendar notification pop up. What's attention supposed to mean?" There was a pause. Barely half a second. But it was there. He turned, leaned against the counter, and laughed like the question itself was harmless. "It's just an inside joke with my team," he said. "Chasing leads. Attention from clients." His tone was light, easy, but his eyes were watching me carefully. I nodded once like I accepted it. Then he shifted. Because Ethan doesn't just answer questions. He redirects them. "You've been kind of intense lately," he added, taking a sip of his coffee, like reading into everything. There it was. Not an explanation. A reframing. "You work in operations," he continued, almost casually. "Everything's structured, predictable. Not everything works like that." Predictable? That word again. I didn't argue. I didn't push. I just nodded and let the conversation end exactly where he wanted it to. Because by then, I understood something important. If I kept asking directly, I'd keep getting redirected. So instead, I started watching. Over the weekend, the small things became impossible to ignore. His phone was never face up anymore, not even for a second. If it buzzed, he picked it up immediately, like the sound itself was a trigger. Sometimes he'd glance at it and smile, subtle, quick, like it wasn't meant to be seen, and then stand up and walk into another room. His laptop, which used to sit open while he moved around the apartment, started closing fully every time he stepped away, even if he was just grabbing water. It wasn't dramatic. It was controlled, intentional. And once you notice intention, you can't unsee it. Sunday evening was when everything stopped being theoretical. He left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. That, by itself, wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that it lit up. Twice. Close enough together that the screen stayed active. I wasn't standing over it. I wasn't waiting for something to appear. I just happened to be there. The contact name read, Lily. Underneath it, in smaller text, Lily from work. The first message preview. Looking forward to Thursday. The second came seconds later. I like how you look at me when you need attention. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't pick it up. I didn't screenshot it. I just stood there, looking at the words long enough for them to settle into something solid and undeniable. Then I placed the phone back exactly where it had been. When Ethan came out of the shower, towel around his shoulders, hair still damp, I was sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. And in a way, nothing had. Not yet. Because what I felt in that moment wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Clean, sharp, quiet. The kind of clarity that doesn't ask questions anymore. It answers them. On Monday morning, I told him we needed to talk that night. I didn't say it dramatically. I didn't raise my voice. I just said it like it was a fact. He barely looked up from his phone. "I've got plans," he said. "Another client meeting." "Of course." "Cancel it," I replied. That got his attention. He looked at me then, eyebrows lifting slightly, like he wasn't sure if I was serious or not. "You think you can control my schedule now?" he asked, a small laugh under his breath. "It's not a request," I said. There was a pause, a longer one this time. Then he shrugged. "I'm not canceling." That was the moment the last piece fell into place. Because it wasn't just the meetings. It wasn't just the messages. It was the certainty. The assumption that I would adjust around whatever he chose to do. That I would stay. That I would wait. At 6:30 that evening, he was in the bedroom getting ready. And I stood in the doorway watching him move with that same deliberate energy I had started to recognize. Same attention to detail. Same quiet focus. Like he was preparing for something that mattered. Just not here. I leaned against the frame and said, "We're not doing this in circles anymore." He didn't turn around. "Then don't start one," he replied. So I didn't. "I saw the messages from Lily," I said. That made him stop. Not completely. Just enough. "And I saw the calendar," I added. "The attention blocks." He turned then, slowly. And what struck me wasn't guilt. It was irritation. Like I had interrupted something more important than this conversation. "She's a coworker," he said. "She listens, that's it." Listens. He said it like it was something I had failed to do. I kept my voice even. "I didn't go through your phone," I said. "I saw what came up on the screen. You left it there." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. You're making this bigger than it is." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally seeing it clearly." There was a pause, and then I asked the only question that actually mattered. "Are you meeting her every week because you need something from her that you're not getting here?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was softer, but not in a way that felt apologetic, in a way that felt justified. "It's not physical," he said. And then, after a beat, "Sometimes I just need attention." That word again. This time, slower, deliberate, like he was offering it as an explanation, like it should be enough. I nodded once, because it was, just not in the way he expected. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't interrupt him. I just stood there, letting that word settle between us. Attention. It sounded smaller when he said it out loud, less abstract, less defensible. And somehow that made everything clearer. I looked at him for a second longer, then asked, "So those Thursday nights, the client meetings, those are just you seeing her?" He hesitated, but only briefly. "Sometimes," he said, shrugging slightly. "It was easier to call them that. You tend to overthink things." There it was again. Not an apology, not even an attempt at one. Just a justification wrapped in a quiet accusation. Like the problem wasn't what he was doing. It was how I might react to it. And that was the moment something in me locked into place. Not emotionally, logically. Clean. Final. We're done," I said. No build-up. No hesitation. Just a statement. He blinked, like he hadn't processed it properly. "What?" "This relationship," I said, just as evenly. "It's over." For a second, he didn't move. Then he let out a short laugh, like I'd said something unreasonable. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being clear. It's not even cheating," he snapped. "Nothing happened." I tilted my head slightly. "You scheduled emotional intimacy with another woman every week," I said, "and then lied about it for months. You can call that whatever you want. I don't need to." His jaw tightened. "That's not what this is," he said. "You've been distant. You're always working. Everything is routine with you. I needed something that didn't feel flat." Flat. Predictable. Structured. Every word he chose was intentional. Every one of them designed to make this feel like a reaction to me, not a decision he had made. I didn't argue with any of it, because none of it changed what mattered. "I'm not interested in competing for something that should exist naturally," I said. That seemed to hit something. Not guilt, not regret. Just irritation that I wasn't engaging the way he expected. "You're really throwing away 2 years over this?" he asked. "Yes." That answer landed harder than anything else I'd said, because there was no hesitation in it. No space for negotiation. He stared at me, waiting. For doubt. For emotion. For something he could push against. I didn't give him anything. After a few seconds, his expression shifted. From dismissive to sharp. You're overreacting," he said. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I replied, "but not enough to stay." That was when I turned, walked to the closet, and pulled out a suitcase. I set it on the bed behind him. "You have 30 minutes, I said. "Take what you need. We'll coordinate the rest later." That was the first moment his composure cracked. Just slightly. Not visible if you weren't looking for it. But I was. "You're serious," he said. "Yes." He exhaled, slower this time, like he was recalibrating. Then he moved, not calmly, not quietly. Drawers opened harder than necessary. Hangers scraped across the rod with a sharp, grating sound. The kind of noise that wasn't accidental. It was meant to be heard. To provoke, to get a reaction. I didn't give him one. I walked out into the living room and sat down, hands folded loosely in my lap, listening without engaging, because I knew something he didn't. This wasn't a fight. There was nothing left to win. About 20 minutes later, he came out with a half-filled suitcase and his work bag slung over his shoulder. He stopped a few feet away from me, waiting. For softness. For hesitation. For something that suggested this was temporary. I met his eyes. Said nothing. That was when he changed tactics. "You're insecure," he said. "That's what this is." I didn't respond. "Every ambitious woman needs validation," he continued. "I didn't even take it that far, and you're acting like I betrayed you." There it was, framed as restraint. As if what he hadn't done was more important than what he had. As if I should be grateful. Something in me almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it made everything simpler. "If restraint is something you expect credit for," I said quietly, "then the boundary was already gone." He didn't have an answer for that, so he deflected. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Anywhere you want," I said. "Friends, family." I paused just long enough. "Or Lily." That landed, not loudly, but precisely. He held my gaze for a second longer this time. And for the first time that evening, there was something else in his expression. Not anger, not arrogance, something closer to uncertainty. "It's not like that," he said. "It is," I replied. Silence stretched between us. Then he turned and walked to the door. He left at 7:15. I stood by the window, not out of sentiment, but out of confirmation, watching until his car pulled away and disappeared down the street. Then I locked the door, and the apartment changed. Immediately. Not empty. Not quiet in a heavy way. Just still, like something that had been slightly off balance for months had finally settled. I sat down on the couch and let that feeling exist without trying to define it. About an hour later, my phone started lighting up. Calls. Texts. First from him, then from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer either. Instead, I did something simple. Practical. I changed the Wi-Fi password. Logged out of every shared streaming account. Removed his fingerprint access from the building app. None of it felt dramatic. It felt like closing tabs. If someone doesn't live here anymore, they don't have access. That's it. Then I muted his number. Not blocked, muted. Because I wanted a record. Same with the unknown number. I let the messages stack up for a while before opening them. There's something grounding about not reacting immediately. About choosing when to engage instead of being pulled into it. Around 9, I finally looked. His messages were predictable. "You're overreacting. We need to talk. I can't believe you did this." Then they shifted. "I never cheated. It was just talking. You're throwing away something real." The unknown number was more direct. "This is Lily. I think you misunderstood the situation. Ethan is upset. Call me so we can clear this up." I stared at that message for a second longer than the others. Not because I was considering responding, because it confirmed something. A woman who feels comfortable contacting her coworker's girlfriend the same night he gets kicked out isn't confused about boundaries. She's invested. I didn't reply to either of them. Instead, I set my phone down and let silence do what it does best. The next morning, I didn't wake up feeling lighter. I woke up feeling precise, like everything in my life had shifted into sharper focus overnight. No noise, no confusion, just clarity. I made coffee the same way I always did. Checked emails, got ready for work. There was no dramatic pause, no moment where I sat and stared at the wall, wondering what I'd just done. Because I already knew. Before I left, I sent one email to building management confirming that Ethan was no longer an authorized occupant. Then I opened our joint savings account, the one we'd use for trips and shared expenses. I transferred out exactly what I had contributed. Nothing more, nothing less, and I left his portion untouched. Then I sent him a short message with the amount and a note that the account would be closed in 48 hours. He replied within minutes. Petty. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in arguing over logistics. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't from him. It was from Lily, or at least her number. But what she sent wasn't a message. It was a screenshot, and it was very clearly not meant for me. It was a conversation between her and Ethan from earlier that morning. "Ethan, I can't believe she actually ended it." "Lily, relax. She'll calm down. Women like her always do." There was a pause in the thread, then another message from him. "She's stable, predictable. She won't walk away for real." And then the last line, the one that made everything settle into something final. "I just needed more attention. I didn't think she'd choose her pride over us." I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because it hurt, because it confirmed something I had already felt, but hadn't fully articulated yet. He didn't think I would leave. Not really. Everything he had done, every Thursday night, every deflection, every half-truth, was built on that assumption. That I would stay, that I would adjust, that I would compete. I didn't reply. I saved the screenshot, and then I blocked both of them. No announcement. No explanation. just removed access. About an hour later, my phone was silent in a way it hadn't been all week. No notifications, no interruptions, just space. And for the first time in days, I realized how loud everything had been before. That evening, I heard what happened next. Not directly, through a mutual acquaintance. The kind of information that travels without being asked for. Ethan had gone to the apartment where Lily was staying. From what I was told, he expected something different. He assumed that now that I was gone, whatever they had been building in secret would simply continue. Without complication, without resistance. But Lily hadn't been building the same thing. She had assumed he would stay where he was, half in, half out. A source of attention, not a full reality. Those two assumptions collided fast. And then it got worse. Because Lily wasn't single, she had a boyfriend. And he found out. Apparently, the Thursday nights weren't as discreet as they thought. Or maybe someone connected the dots once things started shifting. Either way, it reached their office. HR got involved. Nothing dramatic in the legal sense, but enough scrutiny to make both of them uncomfortable. Enough to expose what had only worked in secrecy. 3 days after I blocked them, an email came through. New address. Subject line. Can we talk? I almost deleted it. But I opened it anyway, just in case there was something practical I needed to deal with. There wasn't. The tone was different. No sarcasm. No superiority. Just controlled urgency. He said things had gotten complicated at work, that Lily's boyfriend had gone to HR, that rumors were spreading, that it was affecting his position, his accounts, his standing. He said he never meant for any of it to spiral like this, that he felt overwhelmed. And then, near the end, I miss what we had, the stability, the way things made sense with you. I read that line twice. Stable, predictable. The same words he had used like criticisms before, now reframed as something he wanted back. What stood out wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the lies, no ownership of the choices, just consequences and discomfort. I replied once, briefly, your remaining belongings will be boxed and ready. Saturday at 11 a.m., a friend will be present. This will be our last direct contact unless something legal requires otherwise. He responded within minutes. Why are you being like this? I didn't answer. Saturday morning, I packed everything methodically. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, small personal items. I separated anything that was mine. Documented the condition of the apartment. Not because I expected drama. Because I don't leave loose ends. When he arrived, he didn't come alone. One of his friends was with him. Ethan looked tired. Not devastated. Just worn down. Like things hadn't gone the way he expected. He tried once. Of course he did. We can fix this, he said. What happened with Lily? It made me realize things. It was a wake-up call. I looked at him. Calm. Steady. You already had clarity, I said. You just didn't think it would cost you anything. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. He didn't argue. Didn't push. He signed a simple acknowledgement that he had collected his belongings. Then he left. And that was it. No yelling. No scene. No second attempt. Just finished. As his car pulled away, I felt something settle in my chest. Not relief. Not anger. Clarity. Over the next couple of weeks, pieces of information reached me indirectly. I didn't go looking for them. But Chicago has a way of making everything feel smaller than it is. From what I heard, HR stayed involved. Nothing public, but enough to shift things internally. Lily's boyfriend ended their relationship. Apparently not quietly. Ethan moved teams. Lily transferred offices. Whether it was voluntary or encouraged, I didn't ask. Because it didn't matter. About 10 days later, one final email came through. Longer this time. More honest. He said he underestimated me. That he thought I would cool off. That I would ask him to come back. He admitted something else too. That he liked feeling wanted by two women at the same time. That it made him feel powerful. That was probably the most honest thing he'd said. He also said Lily wasn't what he imagined once everything was out in the open. That the attention felt different when it wasn't hidden. Less exciting. More demanding. Reading that, something clicked. He didn't want a different relationship. He wanted contrast. He wanted me as the stable foundation, and her as the excitement. Once I removed myself, there was nothing left to balance against. No comparison. No structure. Just reality. I didn't reply. I archived the email, and I moved on. Life became quieter after that. Not empty, just intentional. My apartment stayed clean. My evenings were predictable in a way that felt calm instead of dull. I started seeing friends again, going to the gym consistently. Small things, but they added up. Someone asked me once if I was angry. I told them no. Anger means something is unfinished. This wasn't. I didn't chase explanations. I didn't beg for clarity. I made a decision, and I followed through. The strangest part is, I don't miss him. I miss who I thought he was. And that difference matters more than I expected. It's been a little over 3 months now. We haven't spoken since that day. He tried following me once from a new account. I ignored it. Clean breaks stay clean because you don't reopen them out of curiosity. From what I understand, he's still in the same company, just somewhere else. And me? I've been dating casually. Nothing serious yet, but I ask better questions now. Earlier, and I listen more carefully to the answers. Because if someone tells you they need attention from somewhere else to feel whole, you believe them. And then you decide whether that's something you're willing to compete with. I'm not.